welcome to another edition of Swanzey Then and Now. I'm Jody Turner, and we have Lee Dunham here. And today's topic is going to be the Liberty Bell. And let me just say one thing before we get started, because Lee's going to talk mostly today. I know it's hard to believe, but yeah, Lee's going to be talking. So on the Liberty Bell, it says, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land, unto all the inhabitants thereof." That's just the beginning. So this bell, the Liberty Bell that we see in Philadelphia, was actually constructed in England.
What?
In 1752, I believe. And there's been a few additions and changes and things along the way. But Lee, let's start it from there.
Yeah, it seems like kind of this is a little bit of a crazy twist on Swanzey Then and Now, but this starts out with two pictures that came into my possession, or I believe they came from Stanley Earle's collection. And if we could show the first couple of pictures. And here's the Liberty Bell on the back of a truck. And
was this in Swanzey?
This is on Winchester Street at the time, not South Winchester Street.
Swanzey.
That's Cutler School, probably in the background, the cars that you see in the back.
So was this one of the Liberty Bells that they made for all of the states, or is this the original?
No,
this is not the original.
You're jumping ahead.
Oh, okay, all right.
You're jumping ahead. But I looked at it and I said, that's a Liberty Bell. That's kind of great. And here's the second picture, and you see the mill in the background.
Right.
So that now tells you where it is,
yeah.
On Winchester Street. That's Arlene Plummer ringing the bell. There's another clue to you that may not be the Liberty Bell.
Right.
Because you don't ring the Liberty Bell anymore. Hasn't rung for quite a few years. Mm-hmm. And it's dated June 28th, 1950.
Ah, so it is.
So I'm not the average person.
Yeah.
I have seen the Liberty Bell for the last 22 years in a row. Mm-hmm. Well, we missed this year. That's another story.
It's okay. It's COVID.
But I've seen it, every year with the 8th grade trip.
That's right.
American Heritage Tour for Monadnock.
Right.
And so I asked. I mean, I know the story a little bit about the Liberty Bell, but not totally about it. I know it tore it around way back when it was really old. And Americans are really funny about their history back in the old days, for sure. They chipped pieces off the bottom of that way back when, because that's a souvenir.
No.
So that's why it doesn't go anywhere, and you don't touch it. Although I have read that for a sight impaired, they do allow to touch the bell because they can't see it. Mm-hmm. So you must have to go to a ranger and have them, bring you with up to it. But
yeah.
I've never seen that, but I read that and I was like, that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Liberty Bell resides in Philadelphia.
Yes, and it has for, pretty much there since 1915, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. So you'd think, well, what's it doing on the back of a truck? Well, one year when I was down there, when I first started going there, it was in the pavilion. I don't know when you've been, if you have been.
81.
Okay, in 1981.
Oh, no, not 81. This was junior high that we went. Oh, my gosh. So it was even before that. Yeah.
Well, from 76, the bicentennial, it was put in a pavilion, okay, about a block away from Independence Hall. Mm-hmm. And that's where it resided. A little building, not much bigger than, so you could go inside to see it. And that's where it was.
Yep.
They put it in there for the bicentennial, and it remained there until 2003. 2003, they moved it next door and closer, in a much bigger facility. So now it's closer to Independence Hall, actually within sight of it, out the back window. And that's where it has stayed, and it's not coming out of there.
Right.
So I asked one of the guards, the rangers, when I went in there, because they're there every year. It's like, I saw a picture of the Liberty Bell in the back of a truck. Did that actually tour around? And he said, no, it hasn't gone out of this building, since it came into it. But
did he know what you were talking about?
He didn't elaborate. And of course, when I'm on tour with kids, it's kind of hard.
You don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to spend any time doing something for yourself.
Right.
You're constantly worried about, chaperoning is chaperoning.
Yeah.
So I brought that back with me, and I came back and I started doing some digging. Guess what? In 1950, the Treasury Department decided on a campaign for savings bonds.
Yeah.
For your independence, I believe it's actually, if you go back to the first picture, Rick.
And a lot of the things that they talked about were to make yourself strong.
Yeah.
That's what they were really encouraging.
Look on the side of the truck. It's for your independence, buy U.S. savings bonds.
Ah, yeah.
I didn't pick that up the first time.
Yeah.
So what they did for this 1950 campaign is they made, I'm going to use the number 57, replica Liberty Bells. Now the crack on these ones is simulated.
Right.
So that's why you see them ringing it.
Right. But I also hear that the tone is the same as what it would have been for the original
They did
bell.
everything. They measured the original bell, made the same dimensions, the same composite material, metals that are in it.
It's copper.
Mostly
From what
copper,
I understand,
yeah.
80% copper,
Yeah.
I think it is.
And so the tone, they say, is like the original ring. So that's what that bell is. And what they did is they sent them to the I'm crazy. 48 states
Yes.
in 1950, because
Plus Alaska, Hawaii,
Hawaii,
and Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, and U.S. Virgin Islands.
Oh, right. Yes.
Got to remember those
Yep.
territories. So another thing that goes on in 1950, you got to understand, 1945 is when World War II ends, and the Nazi empire, if you will, destroyed churches, and I mean the bells. Just there was a major influx of orders for new bells for all this reconstruction going on in Europe. So when the Treasury started to look to get they ordered 53 bells. They couldn't find a foundry in America that would do it. And Europe had this crush of the foundries were doing nothing but
Making bells.
making bells
Right.
to replace. But Packard Foundry in France put a bit in it. They got America. It was sort of to pay back what America had done to rid Europe of the German Empire, and they got the bid, and they fulfilled the contract of having them done by May 15th.
And why was May 15th the date?
May 15th was sort of the date because they wanted them to tour the individual states as a promotion for war bonds, or not war bonds, but
Savings
bonds
bonds, yeah.
at this point. And they wanted it to conclude on July 4th, Independence Day.
Right.
For your independence, buy bonds. So that's the story. Now that's, okay, I want to know more about this bell. So let's go ring a few more pictures here. There's the original Liberty Bell. That picture was taken by me probably about 3 years ago. That's where it sits right now. And if you look and see a brick building behind it, that is Independence Hall, where it originally hung.
Right. That thing is heavy too.
Yeah, it's
2,000
pounds. Yeah.
80 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, a whole ton.
Yeah.
And you can buy one of these replicas if you want. Packard
Really?
does sell them still. They have the mold.
Wow.
I think the last time I looked, $75,000. You can buy one.
It's only, let me see. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
It might be, and it might be more. I didn't
Yeah.
check to see what date that was.
Right, right. Well, it is a symbol, though, of America.
Right.
It really is.
All right, so now here comes the question of what happened to the 57 replicas. Well, one went to every state or territory. And most of them ended up in state capitals. So as we roll through here, I'm going to show you the New England ones. Here's New Hampshire's, right out by the State House.
I'll have to look at that next time.
I've walked by it a number of times.
Never
and
noticed
really
it was there?
Never took notice to it.
Right, that's
But
beautiful.
there it is. This, I believe, is Maine, and don't mind the people standing in it. This comes from as I started this looking for what this was all about, I found this Facebook page. It's the Brock family Liberty Bell replica page. These, I give, my hat is off to these guys. They have gone to every state now, I believe, in the Union, and photographed the bell if they could find it.
Yep. Nice.
And sometimes it took a little doing to find.
Right.
So,
right.
that I believe is Maine. Then we go off. That's Montpelier, Vermont. That's the one in Vermont. Then we go down, I believe, to Rhode Island, or it could be Connecticut. Yeah, Connecticut. I tried to keep them some sort of order.
Let me ask you a question. I don't think we covered this. Now, with that crack, wouldn't that change the tone? Why is there a crack there?
Well, it would vibrate, but those cracks are simulated.
Ah.
So that's just a, so that's why
To make it look authentic.
To make it look authentic
Right.
to it.
Yeah.
Now, this should be Rhode Island. He should correct me unless I'm wrong, but no, this is Rhode Island.
So each state has one.
And now, this is the one that's interesting. This is Beacon Hill, and he's got his finger pointed up. You can just barely
there's
see
the
a
bell.
little. You can see the top of the bell.
I see.
Right where his finger
Yeah.
is. It's on the front
Like porch
portico
kind of.
or whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it of Beacon Hill, the State House.
Yeah.
And because of 9/11, that's been shut off to the public.
Oh.
So the next picture shows you. This is how close you can get to it from the inside on a tour. You look outside
Right.
the window.
Yeah.
Window.
Yeah.
They actually, on a second trip back, got
They were allowed to go in.
authorization to go out and actually film,
Yeah.
take a picture of the bell.
Beautiful.
So
Isn't
that
it funny
is
how?
Massachusetts.
Yeah, and these were a lot of copper because you can see this one's tarnished because it's been outside. The other ones that were inside are beautiful still.
Now, the other thing about the Massachusetts bell, last I knew there was a bill in their legislature to actually move the bell to a location where it can be seen by the public.
Yeah,
So-
that would be nice.
But that's the case. Now, I threw this in there. This is for my buddy out in Iowa. That's in Des Moines, Iowa. That's probably the only other one that I have seen.
Huh.
Because that's by the State House in Des Moines.
Yeah.
But I threw that in there. I'm not going to throw you all 50 some odd of them.
Right.
And maybe, because my son lives in Tempe, Arizona, so not far from Phoenix, I might go out and see that one.
So there's one in Phoenix as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all over. Now, here's the kicker about this one too is when Packard fulfilled the order in time and actually did extras, there were extra bells, right? Well, what do you do with extra bells? One of them is in France. It's the only Liberty Bell replica that's actual in daily use because it's up in a clock tower, so it rings the hour.
What town?
Oh, I'll say it wrong. I want to say Annecy. I'll probably pronounce it wrong. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
But it was sort of when the Treasury Department got the gift of more than what they ordered. It seemed fitting to give it back to
Right.
them and say, here, you know,
Yeah.
something. One is at the Treasury in Washington, D.C. And then the only one that is missing as we speak is Washington, D.C. Nobody's seen it for a number of years.
Somebody probably just carried it off.
Well, it used to be not far from between the Capitol and the White House.
Yeah.
That's where the pictures are. And then all of a sudden they did some reconfiguration of that area, and
Seriously.
nobody knows where it ended
That's
up.
odd.
And that's the case with a lot of these bells.
Yeah.
If they couldn't get to see them, they'd find they were in storage because they were doing work or whatever. So
Yeah, I'm sure that they're in storage someplace,
so that's
you'll
the
find it
weird
somewhere.
bit. Now, the reason it's kind of weird show for us to do, but we started out in Swanzey.
Right.
And we started out with a couple of pictures that were available. And those couple of pictures, if you have pictures at your house that you don't want anymore, the museum, the Swanzey Historical Museum,
Which is located?
Located in West Swanzey, right behind Brown Field, on Route 10. We'll gladly accept anything that you have. Please, by all means, do not throw stuff away.
Right.
Maybe you look at it and you won't know what it is, and maybe I'll look at it and won't know what it is.
But somebody will. That's right.
Sometimes we can figure it out, and this was one of those cases where you looked at it and originally it was one thing, and then it's like, well, that doesn't seem right, and it grew into this whole other story that, on June 28th, less than a week to its final destination in Concord, it was in Swanzey, that replica bell.
Yep. Wow.
So,
Yeah. So, what kinds of things has the museum had donated lately? Things that might be odd or interesting, or how does somebody donate stuff? Like, do you call? Do you go to their website? What do you do when you want to make a donation?
They don't have a website at this point in time.
Do they have a Facebook page?
There is a Facebook page, and if you
They have a phone number.
message on that, there's a phone number. You can leave a message on the phone. We will get back to you. Either Mary, myself, or Joe Gregory. We'll get back to you. What we're looking for primarily is stuff that pertains to the town of Swanzey. So, and again, this was one of those pictures that's sort of like that gray area.
Right.
Yes, that's something that
happened in
occurred
Swanzey.
in Swanzey,
Right.
and we were thinking, for me, it was like the Liberty Bell was here, and no, it wasn't. Well,
you would
not
have thought
quite.
that,
So,
except for that you did some more research, and that's why it's important to do all that research to keep things going, and so that you know the real story.
Yes, yeah, because there's some things we'll never know if they're that old, but
Yeah.
we have a lot of pictures. I get a lot of requests from people of pictures of their house, and we've got another show that we're going to do about farms. So, that's one of those things. I wish I had a picture of every house that existed in the 1800s. We don't.
Right.
Some places more common than others to have pictures taken, I guess. I don't know.
Well, it probably mattered who was passing by, who could afford to have a photograph taken, and had the time, because these guys are farmers. Like it's not like they just sat around all day waiting around for a guy to take photography.
It would be back in the old days, it's going to be a professional photographer that's going to do it.
And with a poof, and it blows up, and
Yeah. So, it would be somebody that wanted to do it, or somebody that could afford to have him come and do it.
And I think the affording thing is one of the big things, because like when you look at Denman Thompson, look at all the photographs that you see with him.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of photographs. But a lot of these people were farmers, and you'd have to have an event or something, or they'd have to be driving through. I mean, you see stagecoach photos. These are some of the things that I've seen quite a bit of, is the stagecoach photos. There's been some of the Cheshire Fair and Safford Park. And you know what? Another show that I would like to do is on when they used to do the races. The horses and car races at Safford Park.
Yeah.
There's things that we haven't really talked about that might be interesting to realize, that these things had a different life in a different time in our history.
Yeah, Safford Park is one of those things. It always has said, and hopefully it always will say, Safford Park on the Cheshire Fair sign.
Right.
Because that's what it was before the fair.
Yeah, and that was the Safford family that
Safford
lived over
family,
by the backside of the airport.
Yep, Pearly Safford.
Pearly Safford. Yep.
And for those keen students, will remember Norma Safford.
Right, exactly.
That was his daughter.
Yep. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There's a lot that I've seen. You see a lot of pictures of the covered bridges, because we're very lucky. I mean, to have It matters who you talk to. If you have to take care of the covered bridges, it's not so lucky. But the fact that we have so many covered bridges in our area, that is such an asset to have that history with us.
Yeah, it's an asset in one respect, and then it hampers in the other. I mean,
you can't get tractor trailer trucks over those things.
Yeah, I live.
Or fire trucks.
I live, half a mile from one, so.
Right.
When I see a truck go down, it's like, yeah, that'll come back.
Exactly. Yeah, I do the same thing because where we are, I can see them going down. They can always take a right before they get to the covered bridge. But yeah, and then another one is also the cemeteries. Like cemeteries are a great place to learn more about people as well.
Right, and there's not a lot of old photographs of the cemeteries. Every once in a while, I catch one. And, this is a day late and a dollar short for a show that we did on Ernie, Lynn, and Dot. But, so I was at the museum the other day, I was thumbing through some pictures, and I found Dot's graveside right after she'd been buried. And it's just a mass of flowers.
Yeah.
And I also have that sort of picture for Denman Thompson when he was buried, just a mass of flowers in there. So.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when we were talking about the Lynns, I asked my mom and my dad, and they both knew. I said it, and the smile came on their face, like, "Of course I knew the shooting Lynns." I mean, there's so much history here in Swanzey that if we just start to uncover some of it, people are going to start talking.
Yeah. So. Please, give us a call, an email.
Or to the station or email. Yeah. There's so many different areas too. Like we don't want to focus just on Swanzey Center or West Swanzey. Right. West Swanzey had a ton of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Like that was the factory area really. But then you have East Swanzey too.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. When I did the Swanzey Old Photographs page, I did it and separated it into albums, and West Swanzey by far has like 2 to 3 times the amount of photographs.
Yeah, but look at how many people it employed, that lived there, that had farms there.
More people. The first fire department was over there. All these social clubs.
Right.
And I think we talked a little bit about the social clubs, but we could do more. So,
and then you have, like Swansea Center is Swansea Center. I don't know that it was the hub of Swansea, but it was the central part of Westport and East Swansea and North Swansea and all of the different areas.
And Westport's that little sort of forgotten piece.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about Westport too. So if you have photographs about Westport, I would really love to learn a little bit more about that because it's just such a tiny community from what I can see. But I would love to learn more about that as well.
Yeah, it's the cemetery there, quite interestingly. There's an old part of it that I don't even have records to. So it's kind of interesting.
And now when you say you don't have records to, why would you have records? What are you doing right now? What's your job?
See, my job at this point, as I retired from Public Works, was to do the cemetery sexton, which is an old-time position, so to speak. So I'm the one that takes care of the records, takes care of the burials, and tries to, I'm trying to keep and get the records so that they're as accurate as they can be. And it's difficult.
Yeah.
But I got this whole section of Westport. And if you look in the Reed's history, you find that Westport, the original part of Westport, was not even a town cemetery. It was...
Was it like a family cemetery?
I don't know. It was the Westport Cemetery, I guess.
Yeah.
And then it's, at some point, annexed into the town. So, so that's probably why I don't have records to it.
But the records are so important because that's one of the things that when you are buried and it's 100 years later, who knows who you are unless you have a marked grave, and then a lot of the stones have fallen over. Like I don't know what kind of history you have for some of the older stones, really.
The real old ones. I did a search of the first grantors to the town, and I really didn't find any record of them being buried in our cemeteries. And it's like, I'm totally out of hope that they'll find something.
Yeah,
But
yeah. But you know, a lot of people, like if you have old barns or old garages or things that you have just stored away, as Lee said, they'll take those kinds of things at the museum. The museum has a lot of stuff in it already.
yes.
But it would be
Big
great.
things are hard for us, but right now.
But things like dishes or not a whole set, but little relics of like the old homestead. Because I'm sure that they had plates and cups and different kinds of things that they would sell for souvenirs.
Well, we actually the Wickham Hall dishes spent a time over at the museum when we were doing the restoration, and I think they've all come back now. So. But we set them over there and they put them on display for a while. So
Right.
a
Yeah.
bit of them, not the, a sampling of them so you could see them.
Right. Right.
But those are, one of a kind.
Yeah. And again, we've said this before, it means a lot to us in people like our age. Maybe it doesn't mean so much to our kids yet, but someday it may. And we want to be able to keep this, because if you get rid of this stuff, it's never going to come back. Just like I've said before with buildings and things like that. With bells, you melt it down and that's it. Like we had the bell that was in the East Swanzey community house. It's there now.
Yep.
But bells have moved around. They've been at schools like Cutler.
Well,
Cutler,
the bell
like
at East Swansea Community
Yeah.
House is the one
Yeah.
that was in the school.
Exactly, exactly. So, ask questions, but don't throw stuff away. I know, I don't want you to be a pack rat, but, think of the future and just think of it as you're making history. So what we've done today is we've talked about the Liberty Bell, we've talked about independence, and let's try to do something where we can all stay strong, even during COVID, but stay strong and keep our history of Swansea alive.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you today for joining us for Swansea Then and Now. We look forward to seeing you again for upcoming shows. We have lots of topics to talk about, and sometimes we'll post things on Facebook, so watch out and post when we ask if you have any information to share. So thanks for joining us today, and it is Swansea Then and Now.